Today, we are doing a real life walkthrough of how you go about selecting properties when utilizing a 1031 exchange. We're going to talk about the technicalities that make it really, really important to think through, a really easy process for how to do it. And then we're going to fudge around with some numbers and uncover some really cool insights. Welcome everybody to your weekly edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. My name is Pablo Gonzalez. I'm your host, and with me, as always, is the man that I affectionately like to call GC because he got the genius concepts. He knows how to generate cash flow. He's a great co-host, and his name is Gregg Cohen. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Fantastic to be with you today.
All right, GC. Let's talk about this. Let's build a 1031 exchange portfolio. When we are thinking about 1031 exchanges, the reason why you need to have an easy, scalable way of choosing properties is why, GC?
Well, a 1031 exchange can save you thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes at the end of the day. It is a wonderful tactic to use to be able to save tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on taxes. But there are rules that you cannot screw up. And we have had many folks on the show. We have had many folks in the audience who have talked about past tales in their real estate investing journey where they understood the power of the 1031 exchange, but they just messed one little detail up. And this is not something that the IRS allows you just to mess one little detail up and just smooth it over. So there have been many tales of folks that have unfortunately missed out on tax savings because they didn't work with the right provider or they didn't understand the rule as well as that provider told them they probably did. So they didn't know enough of the questions to ask, or they didn't work with the right 1031 exchange intermediary. All of these things can be avoided with a show like this. And so it's going to talk about the power of the 1031, but it's also really importantly going to talk about how to not screw it up.
Definitely going to illustrate the power of the 1031 here when we start going into property selection. Spoiler alert. That being said, my role on the show is the noble fool. I like to ask the questions that you may not feel like asking because you think I should know this. Greg, what is the 1031 exchange in like as few words as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what the IRS allows you to do is to sell a property and not pay the taxes that you typically have to pay at that moment. And we all want to do that as an investor because if we can defer paying the taxes to somewhere down the line, what that means is we keep more money in our pocket. And as an investor, you can use that money that you didn't have to give to Uncle Sam today to go and make additional investments. And that's how you get steps ahead. That's how you get closer to your financial outcome. So a 1031 is a tool to be able to sell a property and not have to pay the taxes that you otherwise would have on that property.
Yeah. And basically it's like you don't pay these like capital, you don't pay like the taxes on the appreciation of the property. In exchange, you have to hit some deadlines as far as like the properties that you sell. You can't put some in after a certain amount of time. You have to be able to close by a certain amount of time in order to like make this all fit. And you have to spend at least that amount of money in order to like qualify for it, right? So
Exactly.
you can't have like, is it the entire bit of money or it's like you can only take tax savings on that amount of money, something like that?
I'm not sure the exact question you're asking.
It's a terrible question. I know that.
But ultimately, I can kind of take it from there. Yeah. Ultimately, the reason that the IRS does this is because it wants to encourage additional investment. And so there are timeline rules, which we'll get into. But ultimately, what the IRS wants you to do is to buy like-kind assets, which means a similar asset to the one that you sold, and to spend more money on it. Now, that means a higher sales price for the things that you're buying. So if we're talking about a real-life example, you might be able to take properties that you might have bought a property in California, and you might have one property, you might have appreciated. And what you might be able to do is to take that one property and break that up into maybe 3 or 4 or maybe 5 properties in a lower price market like Jacksonville, get instant diversification by buying more assets, have better returns on investment. And what we need to do in order to satisfy that requirement is just to make sure that the sales price of those 5 properties is a little bit higher or a lot higher than what the original one was.
So talk us through the scenario that we're about to do, Greg. Like you just said it. We're gonna take the example of somebody that bought a property in California, 2020. It's appreciated how much?
Yeah, let's say you bought it in 2020 and your capital gain, so it's appreciated enough and all the taxing. At the end of the day, you would have had to pay $375,000 or you would have had $375,000 of a taxable gain. The taxable gain is made up of the appreciation plus whatever you depreciated from a tax perspective. So don't worry about that mumbo jumbo. At the end of the day, you bought a property in California. It's appreciated nicely like it has over the last 5 years. And now you're at a place where you realize that you can make a better investment in a different market like Jacksonville. And now you're saying, instead of me paying taxes on the $375,000 of gain, what can I do to maximize my tax savings and ultimately have a better investment?
So we're basically going to put $375,000 to work.
Yes.
Right? Like the rule says we can use all of this stuff tax deferred. So we want to maximize our tax savings because we are savvy investors. We are financial engineers. We want to put $375K to work. That way we're not being taxed on it, which that tax on like that $375K could be what, GC?
It's capital gains tax, plus some other applicable taxes. But for the purposes of the example today, let's just assume that you would be taxed at 20%. So if you have $375,000 of gains that you would be taxed on, if you don't use a strategy like a 1031, that's really like having $300,000.
Yeah.
That's like
paying a
giving
75K haircut.
You take $75,000 and you give that away. You pay that in taxes, and you didn't have to. And as we're breaking it down in real life, what I try to help people understand is that's the difference of an additional asset, an additional rental property in your portfolio. That's why this 1031 is such a beautiful strategy, because you can take that same pile of money. If you didn't know about it and you wanted to buy properties, you might be able to buy 3 or 4 because you would have had to give $75,000 to the tax man. But by using this strategy, that same $375,000 can actually be used to invest in all of your assets today. And so that might mean 4 or 5 properties. That same pile of money that you have earned can now have 4 or 5 assets in there instead of 3 or 4.
Yeah. So again, it's a tool. You just explained it in a way of like, you get that pile of cash and you're going to have extra money to invest because you have that tax savings, right? So it could actually, we'll show it today. It's going to lead to having an extra property when it comes to bigger numbers. And then you have the choice to essentially financial engineer things based on your goals. You can take that full thing, buy 1 or 2 in cash. You can take the full thing and buy 5 financed, right? Or 3 in finance and 1 in cash, stuff like that, right? So like, we're going to show this very applicable way of like looking at this to maximize the returns that you can make on this investment based on JWB's very unique approach of being able to select properties because of the way that you do your business model. We ready to get into it?
Let's do it, baby.
All right. Oh, before we do, Alex Diaz says, I have a paid off property who is producing $900 in passive cash flow monthly. This property covers for emergency funding when more than 1 JWB property is vacant. The market value is $170K. Should I 1031 and buy 2 more JWB properties?
Alex, I think it's a great question. I would encourage you to jump on the phone with our sales team. It's hard for me to give just an answer here in the short time that we'll have because I don't know your full goals. I don't know the financial outcome that we're working towards. I don't know the resources beyond what you just shared there. So that's a great time for you to sit down with our team and say, here's what I'm thinking. Let's start with the end in mind. I want to retire in 10 years. And then we can back that up and we can say, here's how many assets you need to get in your portfolio if you're going to reach that financial outcome. Then we can look and see how many assets you have right now. And we can say, let's see how far off we are. If you're already to the right number of assets that you're going to be able to accomplish that goal in 10 years, then the answer may be, no, let's not do a 1031 exchange because you've got the right assets. Now you just need to stick to the plan. However, if we look at that and we say, you know what? you need to get 6 more assets into your portfolio. We need to do it relatively quickly. We might look at this and say, you know what? This would be a great time for you to do a 1031 exchange, Alex. So hopefully I gave you a little bit of kind of the parameters about how we would go about that answer. But I love the fact that you're thinking about it, and I love the fact that you're here investing in your education. Jump on the phone with our team, and we can guide you to the next step.
It sounds by the question that Alex might be a JWB client already. So maybe it's jump on with your portfolio manager.
That's what I mean.
Have them talk through it. Yeah.
Oh, did I say sales?
Not to point out everything.
I know Alex is a client.
Yeah,
I know
okay.
Alex is a client. Yeah, jump on with your portfolio manager.
Yeah. So they can run this calculation for you, Alex, and you can figure it out. All right, let's get into this example today. First things first, for those of you that haven't seen this before, this is JWB's portfolio generator. We all know here that Greg his dream is to compete in the Excel World Championship.
That's true.
So he puts together these complex spreadsheets that do really fancy things, but this isn't just a spreadsheet, right? Like the idea that JWB has this much inventory that they own already because they are fully vertically integrated and aren't a fake turnkey provider that's just like finding a deal and putting you into it, is kind of the magic sauce behind it. But beyond that, you see all of these different numbers. Talk me through some of these numbers you see.
Yeah, so we'll stick to kind of the portfolio generator section, right? At the top there is just more of a summary, and obviously this is a sample client. So in the bottom here, this is really where you find the quality of the operator that you're working with, the quality of the market that you're operating in, and how well do they know their stuff. So you need to understand certain things about the property. And as we're looking at the screen right now, obviously purchase price, we're going to see beds, baths, parking, square footage. Those are things that you need to be able to know about the property related information. Then there's a lot that needs to be known about the debt. So if we see closing cost, interest rate, percentage down, really important information. We need to be able to look then at what are the revenue sources and what are the cost sources. And those revenue and costs need to be known for today. Like, for example, what is the monthly rent on the property? And what are the costs today, right? What is property insurance for today, or property taxes? We also need to know, what are my costs going to be going forward? So as we start to think about expected maintenance costs, expected vacancy costs, we see some percentages there. Those are looking into the future to make sure that we can manage this well and to make sure that it's producing positive cash flow in the future. And then lastly, we're looking at the big wins long-term. And those would be rent price appreciation and home price appreciation. And warning sign, if you are talking with a turnkey property company, make sure you understand how they're getting their numbers when it comes to home price appreciation. It is probably the most commonly fudged number that I have seen in looking at dozens and dozens and dozens of pro formas. I've never seen a pro forma that they actually knew what their home price appreciation rate should be in their market. And it's an easy way for turnkey companies to just put a higher number, claim ignorance, and say, my returns just went up from 10% to 30%. So it's a dirty little secret within this industry. So we got to understand, do they know their numbers? Do they know today's numbers? Do they know tomorrow's numbers? And then lastly, you need to take all this information and have an ability to type a few things and be able to run different scenarios and see different outcomes to make sure that it's going to ultimately create the solution of the 1031, which is the focus of the show today. So that's what this allows you to do.
Nice, in-depth breakdown. I'm going to give the Noble Fool's Guide to this thing, right? You need to know your property. Well, first of all, you need to know that your vertically integrated turnkey provider owns these properties, right? So they have to have these in stock. And here you see JWB can pull up 20 properties at a moment's notice. And then you're going to have property features, right? Which is the address, the zip code, the bedrooms and bathrooms, and the square footage, and the year built, and septic or not. Then you're going to have today's numbers, right? The interest rate, the purchase price, all things that you are certain of today. Year one rent, property tax today, property insurance today, additional costs today. And then you have tomorrow's numbers, the stuff that's going to happen as it goes on. Greg broke down that in today's numbers and tomorrow's numbers, there's costs and there's revenue, right? Costs, property tax, property insurance, revenue, rent for today's numbers, costs, maintenance percentage, vacancy percentage, revenue for tomorrow's numbers, revenue is expected, rent appreciation, and home price appreciation. So that is the what's it called? What's the book that's like I want to say like the Idiot's Guide to, but it's not. It's the
Oh, for dummies.
for dummies.
There we go.
That's listening for dummies, and I'm the dummy. All right, GC. So now let's get into the actual example, right? You said that we have 375 grand here to invest because this is the money that we're putting into this 401k. As we all know, before you actually get into the sale of your home, you need to have identified some processes,
Yes.
some homes, right? So at this point, if you were thinking about selling a home, you really want to get with a provider that's going to give you the options of where you're going to do it so that you can give your intermediary, you can tell the tax man, these are the properties that are in my consideration set, right, GC?
Yeah, why don't we just talk about who the players are to help you have a successful 1031 exchange, and then let's talk about the rules that you can't screw up,
Okay.
specifically regarding timelines. So you're going to want to have a turnkey property provider who can do the things that you just eloquently described right there. You're also going to want to have a 1031 exchange intermediary. Custodian is another word for it. And this is a company that its sole focus is to make sure that the very important details on a 1031 exchange, largely regarding movement of funds and largely regarding of timelines, do not get screwed up because you cannot touch these funds. If you touch these funds, they go back to you after the sale of the home, it invalidates the tax savings. So they serve as an intermediary to hold the funds, and they also help you make sure that you don't screw up some of the important things. So there's actually a second person, a part of your closing team. And if it's a great vertically integrated turnkey rental company, they'll have a person that, or a company that they work with who has done this thousands and thousands of times, like we do here at JWB. So now we know that. Now here's just the timelines that you have to stick to. You have from the date of your previous sale. So if we go back to that California example, let's say that they sold their property in California today. They would have 45 days to identify potential properties that they would then choose to close on from those properties. So if we're going backwards here, they have 45 days to figure out how many properties do they want to buy. And then they have 45 days to be able to find enough of those properties to be able to use all 375,000. And then they would have those 45 days to say, well, out of all the properties that I can find potentially, what are my best 3, 5, 7, 10 properties? And you can give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. That's why this list is about identifying those properties. So you can give yourself a little bit of wiggle room so that if, for example, one of those properties can't work, you can replace it. But it's only from that list that you identify in the first 45 days.
Yeah, that reminds me of Jag Chada's story where she was working with a turnkey provider that had promised her that a property would be ready within those 45 days. It wasn't. They didn't have a backup property that was previously selected, so she just had to pay the taxes, right?
That's how it
wasn't
goes.
able to reinvest that.
You know, in the bubble here of the vertically integrated turnkey rental property space, 1031s are easy for JWB or companies like JWB to serve clients. It is like normal business. But in normal real estate, it is about the hardest thing to pull off, especially for a client who's coming from a high price market that has a lot of appreciation, like we're doing an example of here, because they've got a huge pile of cash many times that they need to move and be able to buy properties in a relatively short period of time. And it's hard to find 5 or 10 properties that you want to put your money into within a month and a half. Like outside of vertically integrated turnkey rental property companies, they just don't have 15 single family rental properties ready to go today. You know, if you were going to go with your real estate agent, they might look up 15 properties on the multiple listing service, but what are the chances that
you can negotiate
they
that, close
gotta
it,
get
have it ready.
negotiated, like that you could even get access to 15 properties in 45 days. It's just, and that's part of why 1031 exchanges are tough. People think that they're tough to do, but there is a solution if you find the right type of company, vertically integrated turnkey rental property company. It's easy. This is normal standard procedure. So that's why it works so well.
Makes sense, man. I think it's part of the magic of the JWB business model, man. Like, I don't know if when you guys were 24 years old and you were starting to do this thing that you would see this all, but like I see kind of like y'all's ability the magic in what you guys have made easy is really a magic of manufacturing. Like you guys have turned into like a manufacturing facility of bringing homes to market, making them perform in a widgetized way.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this thing easy. So let's just show how easy it can be, right, GC?
Cool.
So we have identified the fact that there's going to be $375K to invest. Where do we go from here?
Yeah. So if this was let's say this is Alex Diaz. Because Alex is a current client, he's thinking about doing a 1031 exchange. Let's say that the numbers were $375,000 for Alex Diaz. He would have a phone call with our portfolio managers. And then in the background, our sales team would say, okay, let's start to financially engineer this thing. And so that's what I did prior to the show. And I'm going to put together a portfolio of 5 properties out of here that would be ideal for Alex. I'll give you kind of the framework. We won't go through all the nuts and bolts because we want to keep the show largely moving forward. But I'll give you just kind of like the framework of what we would think about.
Yep.
What we do is we look for, number one, return on investment first.
Yep.
So all of these properties, and we don't need to fill it in here. You can just kind of go back to the other one. But
I was just going to show where you see it here. You see the return on investment is here.
there you go.
And then when you fill it in, you see the total initial investment and you see your net rental income. Just spoiler of what you're going to talk about.
Love it. There you go. So we look and say, okay, out of the 15 assets, we start plugging and chugging some numbers here in the background. And we're like, all right, what's the best return on investment first? Next, we need to make sure that we have positive cash flow, not just year one. All of our properties are positive cash flow year one. But we also need to make sure that they're positive cash flow for the horizon, the lifetime. And for this, it's a 10-year hold that we're doing here. So number one, return on investment. Number two, positive cash flow for year one and the horizon. And then number three, we need to make sure it works with the budget.
Yep.
So I did all that work in the background, and I'm going to give you some properties here to throw on here. We've got, there you go.
I'm going to start sharing because I started kind of doing it while you were explaining there, but I know it's this Commonwealth one, Deckel, we're throwing on there. 610, just read them out there. Feel free to help me out.
There you go. 610 30th Street East, 3539 Roselle.
3539 Roselle is here.
There we go. And number 5 is 5720 Cook Street.
5720 Cook Street. All right. So we've selected these 5 properties, GC, because you've done this work ahead of time and you have identified that these are the ones with the highest returns that are positive cash flow and fit at the end of the day. It has to be at least 375 grand that you're putting into it. We're making the assumption here that we're putting 25% down, right? We're going to spoiler it. We're going to talk about that later. And this is what we come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. This is all done as a part of it's a collaborative process. I'm making this much simpler right now, but our team would be prepared. We would walk you through how did we come to these 5 properties on our call together. So you're feeling like you understand beyond just the 5 here. But let's just say that we arrived here and Alex is super fired up about these 5. Well, now we're looking at it and we chose these properties based on that criteria. But look at the total initial investment there. What's that number there? 389.
389.
That's higher than 375.
That's right.
So here's where we get to do a little bit more financial engineering alongside you and show you how this works. So now we get to go back to the other sheet and look at our percentage down. Well, actually, stay right there before. The reason why I'm saying that there's an opportunity to kind of adjust percentage down here is I'm looking at the net rental income. That's $67,000.
Zoom in here.
Yeah, you're doing great. Doing great, Vanna. See that $67,000. This is talking about this rental property portfolio producing an estimated $67,000 over the 10 years of ownership, which is a lot. Our goal minimum is break even.
Yep.
So when we see large numbers of positive cash flow there, as financial engineers, what my team is thinking is, how can I use these resources to make this an even better performing portfolio? It's like a trigger for us. And what we know is the relationship between cash flow and return on investment and down payment. And when you put less money down, you increase your return on investment and you are able to give up a little bit of cash flow to do it. But as long as you can still maintain positive cash flow, that for many clients, that's a better thing to do because we just made your money work harder for you.
Yep.
So when we look at that $67,000 down for the tax savings right there, for the net rental income right there, that's a trigger. And we say, all right, now let's go back to the other sheet and let's look and see if we can decrease our amount down and see what happens to return on investment and net rental income. Remember, everybody, 12.4% was the estimated rate of return before we start to adjust the percentage down.
So I'm going to just put all these at 20% and see what happens. So we went from 12.4%
Is this a good time to talk about interest rates though? Because remember on past shows here, we didn't talk about ever going to 20%.
Yeah, why don't we talk about that? I've
20%.
noticed here that we are able to talk about 20%. We haven't talked about that for a while.
Let's celebrate this, guys.
Yeah.
You know, we've done similar shows to this, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 times now. And sometimes folks in the audience have said, hey, can we go to 20% down? And I said, we can't because it's negative cash flow here. But guess what, guys? The interest rates for JWB clients have come down substantially. And that's because the overall interest rates in our economy have come down for 30-year mortgages. So JWB clients get interest rates under 5% now. And the relationship, this is such a huge opportunity now because this creates positive cash flow situations even at 20% down. So for all of you who are just on the doorstep and said, you know what, I just maybe need to save $5,000 or $10,000 more to buy my next JWB home. Well, just because interest rates have come down, we might be able to help you buy at 20% down. Now you might have the capital ready to go and can take that next step forward to that financial outcome. So this is a big deal. It's not the focus of the show today, but as I was running the numbers here, I was like, guys, this is something that we should all celebrate.
You know what this reminds me of, GC? During the housing boom, where every bank was advertising interest rates in the 4s. Right? That's what they were saying. We haven't had interest rates in the 4s for a while, right? We've been at higher than usual interest rates for an elongated period. Nowadays, working with someone like JWB, you can get interest rates in the 4s. That tells me, if I was thinking, okay, I'm waiting for this thing to drop because either I just wanted to like wait till it was in the 4s, or it now, like the lower interest rate now allows me with a down payment that I have, it's time to take another look, right? Like it's time right now, the interest rates are back in the 4s to go to chatwithjwb.com, schedule a call and see what your money can do for you.
Yes. I do want to give a couple of caveats.
Yeah.
Okay. This doesn't mean that everybody is going to get an interest rate in the 4. It's dependent, of course, on your financial profile, right? Which the lender is going to determine this is possible, but it doesn't mean everybody's going to get it. And then there typically might be a premium for 20% down loans over 25% down loans. So this is possible, but it may be a little bit higher dependent on the lender. So I do want to make sure everybody knows that. Certainly not guaranteed. When you call the sales team at JWB and say, I want a 4.95% mortgage, be prepared that we're going to say it's dependent on you. And there may be a premium that certain lenders may require over this. So keep that in mind. But the point is the same. We can get mortgages somewhere around 5%, which is a huge opportunity and lets us put 20% down.
They call him GC because he gives great qualifiers. All right. So we remember it was our original IR estimated rate of return was 12.4. Now at 20% down, it jumps up to 13% and still cash flow positive over here.
Absolutely. Is this a better thing to do with your money?
If you are looking for growth, 100%.
100%. And you are still in a very positive situation, both year one for cash flow and over the entire lifetime of your portfolio. So this is a huge win, but it doesn't solve the problem. Like, what's our down payment? What's our initial
down payment
investment
is now $334,000 GC, and I know I got to spend at least $375,000 and a penny.
Why do you have to do that?
Because in order to maximize my taxes.
Now we got to keep our financial engineering hats on. This is what we do here at JWB. Any reputable turnkey provider who has experience can do the same thing and say, you know what? The mission is not accomplished because we're not just looking at growth and cash flow. Now we're looking at max tax savings too. So just like you said, we need to figure out a strategy to actually get as close to that 375 out of pocket as possible. And so now we're going to go back to that other sheet, and where we put 20% down for everyone, we're going to pick and choose some of these to put 25% down.
Okay.
And we understand that we're going to give up a couple of percents of growth on some of those assets, but our tax savings
right now. All right, yeah, continue.
But our tax savings is going to trump that. Our tax savings is going to be much bigger. We're going to fully maximize that, and that's why it makes sense to do that.
So which ones do we put 25%?
So we're going to put 25% on 610 30th Street, 3539 Roselle, and 5720 Cook Street.
3529 Roselle and Cook Street.
Easy, right?
Easy. Now we are back up to 12.6%, higher than before, but higher than the original one. All of them at 25% down, but lower than all of them at 20% down. but we're at 369,000. So now we're much closer to that 375 to maximize tax savings and nice chunk of positive cash flow as well.
And I should probably point out that when we're reflecting tax savings, that is tax savings from the rental income that the property is producing over those 10 years.
Yeah.
This is not encapsulating tax savings of doing a well-executed 1031 exchange
Correct.
as well. So that's why financially, why this would make sense to give up a few points of rate of returns, because if we actually calculated the tax savings, inclusive of everything we're working on here, it would be much higher with this strategy.
Makes sense.
So yeah, so now we're at call it 370 out of pocket. That is close enough to where we can adjust a few things. Now, obviously this is estimated, right? We're going to get the closing costs and, you know, the tax prorations as it comes in and the recording fees from the city and all those things as the closing happens. We're going to look to see what of those things can we attribute your 375 to. We might adjust a little bit to put a slightly higher percentage down on a couple of properties. And between us and your lender and your 1031 intermediary and the closing team and the title company, we're all going to work together to maximize that number to try to get it as close to 375 as possible. But this now is the framework.
This is now the framework. So that's now like really close to 375. We just showed how we can look at an entire, essentially look at 20 homes, narrow it down to the 5 that you're going to take because you're looking at IRR, you're looking at total investment, and you're looking at net rental income to be positive, right? From there, you pick your properties in that order. Then you're looking at it with 25% down. You see what your returns are. You see how much, if you have a lot of cash flow, you can then start dropping the down payment percentage and then keeping it positive. And then you're also matching it to like this total spend here. Do you see, I'm going to go completely off script here.
Sweet.
What happens, why didn't we, when we were at, I'm just going to do it. When we were at all of them 20%, right? Why couldn't we just have added another property instead of fudging around? Like if, let's say I'm like trying to like maximize just total growth in my portfolio.
Yep.
Right. And I have an extra 40 here that I need to like put to work in order to maximize tax savings. I am selling a whole property, right? So there is going to be other money that I'm clearing.
Yeah.
That it's not going to go into this bucket, but I could also just add another property, couldn't I?
100%. That's another thing. And for this,
Can we do that right now?
well, yeah, you can. And then, let's go there and let's find,
It's the lowest price property. So that it would be this one, we got 214, 222. Let's do this one.
There we go.
So, 210 over here, right?
There we go. Potomac. Yep.
So let's put 6 in here.
Yep.
Boom.
I love it.
393, right? So we are a little bit over that 375. We added another property, get us closer to our retirement goals, still cash flow positive and coming in at a whopping 12.9%.
100%. I don't even know. Did you put everything at 20%? Man, I love the way you think. This is actually pretty common too, right? Yeah. For this example, I was trying to show everybody without bringing additional capital to the table.
Yeah.
But you're 100% right.
Yeah.
You can get to the point of investing fully that 375. And if you have additional capital, it's 20 grand?
18 grand.
Extra 18 grand.
Yeah.
Now you can get a 6th asset.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, once you get over 5 assets, your property management fees decrease when you're working with a vertically integrated company like JWB.
Yeah.
Some other ones have incentives as well, but once you get to 5, then your property management fees decrease from 10% a month down to 9% a month. So the more assets you get in, the more of those savings you get. And
Patriot Santorius also brings up a good point. You don't have to spend the 375 as long as you're willing to pay capital gains tax on like the rest of the stuff that you don't spend up to 375. So that's another option. You can bring more capital to the table, or you can just decide to pay more tax.
All great points. Absolutely.
All totally fine, right? So, I bring this up, GC, just because I feel like it's a very natural thing to, when you start with JWB, it's kind of like when people start their first business, they're like, I want to get to the point where I'm making 10 grand a month. Right? Like, I feel like it's very common to hear when people start investing with JWB, I want to get to 10 properties.
Yeah, right.
Right. So like if I find a way to shortcut how I get to 6 right now and all I got to do is add 4 more, that's something to consider as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well done.
So now we see the different ways that even a fool like me can financial engineer. But what about what we talked about with JAG, GC? Like, this is obviously JWB owns all these properties. So there isn't going to be this thing where like, you're not going to be able to bring it to market, but the question still stands, right? Like, what if something goes wrong and you have to replace a property? Wouldn't we want to select more properties just in case?
Yeah, so it starts by understanding the rules and then identifying enough properties that you have wiggle room. But you just can't choose random properties. You have to understand that you have the ability to buy those properties. So that's hard for the general public to do. For working with a turnkey company, with a vertically integrated company like JWB, it's easy.
Yeah.
Right. What we would recommend is somewhere around, if 5 is going to be the number of properties that we are going to target to purchase, then identifying somewhere around 10 would be a good number. Now, the IRS has certain rules, and you can't just identify 100. You can't identify every property in the world, so you have to use some measure. But typically, kind of doubling the number that you think you're going to acquire makes a lot of sense.
So is there a 5? It looks like you looked at another 5 that would make a good
Yeah,
step here.
I
We
did.
can add to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So then I was saying, all right, well, in Jag's example, which she shared, something happened. She, I think, was counting on a property to be built by a certain time, and
Yeah,
it
they had to
wasn't.
remodel it by a certain
It
time.
wasn't delivered well, you know, or on time. Guys, that's really normal in the world. Like, for example, if you're just buying properties and, you know, buying them through a realtor with the MLS, guess what? Sometimes closings get delayed. We haven't talked about the next timeline rule, but there's 45 days to identify. You have to close on the properties within 180 days. And so if you are down to day 180 and you're supposed to close on the property, but the seller just refuses to sign, you can't get the tax savings with that amount of money anymore. So this is very, very normal in the world. That's why it's so important to work with companies that are experienced here. You won't run into any of those problems with JWB. All the properties that we sell are fully built or renovated. They are rented with an existing resident in the home. They are already paying rent in the home. So, and then these are fully owned by JWB, so we make the decision. So you don't have to worry about those things, but the general public would. And so then I said, well, all right, let's play that
Meteor
scenario.
shower comes.
Meteor shower
5
comes.
meteors hit the 5 properties.
Yeah, I will tell you. Exactly. There you go. You have a meteor shower in Jacksonville. It only hits those 5 JWB properties that you have under contract to purchase.
So we picked 5 other properties.
So we picked 5 other properties.
And now we go back to it, right?
There we go.
Now we go back and see it again. I think this is still with, I forgot how much we got down right now. I think we have 20% down. Let me just put 25% down for everything.
That works.
And boom, you have another portfolio that would also work.
You have another portfolio that would also work. The rate of return is very similar, but we're going to go through that same exact scenario here. It's $395 out of pocket. We have $375. So now we're going to go through, financially engineer this thing and put 20% down for a couple. And
Which
then
ones are we putting 20%?
we'll put 20% down for Doughboy and Binding Street.
All right, Doughboy living up to his name.
I love Doughboy.
Yeah,
I hope somebody who's listening to this buys Doughboy. Don't you feel good about buying a property?
I do.
Oh, man.
So now we're at 373. We're right there.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. Positive cash flow, 12% return. Looking good.
I think the numbers before were 12.6%. Absent of a meteor shower that hits the 5 properties in Jacksonville that you were going to buy. If a meteor shower should come and only hit those 5 properties, you are buying an asset with a 12% estimated rate of return. You're doing quite well, and you're able to fully execute those tax savings.
And you are on the way to your plans,
There you
right?
go.
Like uninterrupted. All right, let's go through a couple of questions here. Good job, by the way.
Yeah, man, this is great.
Cool. Yeah.
Nice
So
job.
GC and I have been like figuring out this portfolio builder this isn't like the main event. This is like a tool to get to the main event, right? Like here, the main event is seeing yourself being able to go through a process, real life scenarios, and we're going to continue doing these portfolios of the month with real life examples so that you can understand how to think through things like 1031 exchanges, like cash out refis, like all these kinds of different things, right? So Joel Almosara asks, is in the 375, is closing costs included in 375?
Yes.
So we put this thing together when we're thinking about all in, that number includes closing costs and everything else, right?
Absolutely. Closing costs, it includes down payment. It includes things like a prepayment, a buy down of the interest rate, includes everything.
Cool. MVP, Lee Bishop, he's back, baby. Asking, does the 8% closing cost included in the 1031 exchange? So does it include closing costs?
Same question.
All right, look at that. Joel and Lee, one mind. All right, Michael Santorios, Princeton Santorios says, Greg, sorry if I missed you already say it, but when doing a 1031 exchange, the replacement property must carry an equal or greater mortgage/loan than the relinquished property, or else the difference is treated as taxable boot, subject to capital gains.
There's the patron Santorios flexing, leading the 301 class like he normally does. He's 100% right. There are some additional things to take into account that we haven't gone through here. One of the things is we need to make sure that the amount financed on your properties meets the requirements as well. And so that's what the patron Santorios is talking about here. He's talking about the fact that the replacement properties must carry an equal or greater amount of mortgage than the original properties that were sold as well. All these things will be taken care of and planned in advance between your intermediary, JWB, your lender, to make sure that you're put into the space where you can maximize your tax savings. But if you work with somebody who doesn't understand that, any of those three teammates who doesn't understand that, you could be subject to what's called the boot. Nobody wants the boot.
Nobody wants the boot.
And the boot means that you pay taxes on some of that money that you otherwise thought you would have avoided paying the taxes on it at this time. So great point.
I'm glad he asked about that.
Well done.
All right. Jeff Pettijohn asks, how much does the 1031 intermediator charge in a transaction?
You know, I haven't asked that question in a while. It's not high. I don't know exactly what.
It's not tens of thousands.
No, it's not tens of thousands. I don't know. That's $1,000 or $2,000 or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good stuff, GC.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this. So this is something that we've been exploring, right? Like we've done a couple different scenarios. I think this is like the best example of really showing the power of a vertically integrated team and an easy process when we can wrap it in these like real life scenarios that have real life obstacles and you can go through it. So would love to hear from the from the JWB community if this makes sense visually how we're presenting it. Do we present it a different way? Like we have the option of kind of taking like screenshots of the different things that we would do and we can show it to you that way. But we think that kind of like working through it so that you see it's just like one push of a button here, one push of a button there, and it happens. Let us know if that makes sense to you. You know, something that we didn't highlight is the fact that when we do this thing, this portfolio generator generates the Pac-Man chart, right?
Yeah.
Like in all of these, we still see the net rental income, the tax savings, the principal pay down, and of course, the Pac-Man, where you make the majority of your returns when it comes to rental properties is home price appreciation. So when it's on a pie, it looks like a Pac-Man. All right, we got one more question that I think just populated over here. Linda Evans asks, does JWB have a custodian on board to help with this?
Yes, absolutely. We have a few that we can recommend. One of our favorites is Claudia Kiernan, who was a guest on the show not too long ago, and she shared with the group way more detail about 1031 exchanges than even we've done here. So there's Claudia and there's a few others that we work with. And so if you'd like the recommendation, just reach out to the team, Linda, and we'll be happy to put you in contact.
Yeah, Leah has given us a suggestion. We can compare the difference from the original property cash flow to the new 5 property cash flow. That would be an interesting scenario to go.
Yeah, I love that.
To support that.
You know, the challenge is I would need to get a real example. Honestly, the community could help with this.
Yeah.
And I know some of you have done a 1031 exchange and have moved the properties over to JWB. And so if anybody has done this, if you had the real numbers for what your cash flow was, and we could look at what was your mortgage, what was your property taxes, what was your insurance, all that good stuff, we could put that real life example. For today's example, we used a fictitious example of a property that you bought in 2020 and showed that. But man, it would be the next time that we do this, and we'll do this, you know, as often as you guys like, the next time if somebody could help us and say, this is exactly what I did, we might even bring you on the show. We could do your client journey. We could look at that exactly. There's a lot that we could do there.
I got an idea for one of those. I told you I have like a cousin that's like has this property in Massachusetts.
Oh yeah.
I think who bought it in like 2009. Right. So like, I think we could do like a real life example of like cashing out that property and bringing it over here.
Do you think your cousin might actually tune in the show then?
No, no, I don't. But I could show it to him, and then I've done all I can.
And he'd watch 30 seconds.
Then I've done all I can for him. I just want to do.
You're trying to get that one referral, huh? You are looking for your referral.
It's for him.
You've been like the most influential for people seeing the vision here at scale.
But not one-to-one. Nobody.
But never one like email or text referral from Pablo.
Not
yet,
one.
So.
And I've tried. Tried real hard. I try to be more like the patron Santorios. By the way, Lee Bishop says that question was from Jane. The real MVP.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
she
yeah.
really is. Jane, it's so nice to hear you through the MVP. We love you both.
Absolutely. And Lee says, I bet Zach's done it. Zach's done everything, Lee. There's nothing that Zach Correa hasn't done. So
He's done a 1031 while walking a height rope and riding a alpaca.
Okay. Anila Barimi says, do you guys have in-person meetings?
Yes, we do. I feel like you want to answer that one.
Anila, we have a annual Not Your Average Investor Summit. That is when all of us come together. It's usually late January, early February here in Jacksonville. It's reserved for JWB investors. So it's all the people that have like done this and stuff like that. So yeah, we do it yearly. And then Jen fills in, we have other people. Just if you tell people where you're from, Anila, here in the chat, there's a high probability that someone lives within like 100 miles of you and is more than willing to hang out with you. We're a very gregarious community here, particularly if you're in Northern California. Yeah, Lee just said it. He's the fairy godmother. Oh, she's in Palm Coast, Anila. So
Anila, you should come up to visit JWB. We invite folks, everybody in our community. We just invite you in for lunch. We have lunch every day served. We have a chef inside the office here. We have 135 teammates here. We all get together. So I would encourage you to reach out to our team. And if you're in Palm Coast, you're like an hour drive away.
Yeah, about an hour.
You should just make some time. Come on up and meet the team.
Joel Almosora, why do I always say Almorosa? Almosara says he's going to be in Jacksonville on August 27th. So he's going to be visiting.
Perfect. There we go.
I need to put that on my schedule, Joel. I would love to meet you in person, my friend.
I would love to see you too. What day is the 27th?
Yes. What day?
Joel, tell us what day that is.
Joel,
I'll try to
make
make
Tuesday and be like
no,
a person guest here.
not gonna do that. Whatever day you're gonna be here, Joel. I'm gonna try to be in the office.
You to crash the show, Joel. Lee does it all the time. You should just take license. So, all right, cool. I think it's a Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
all right, I'll do my best.
Yeah, would be great. Would be great, Joel. This is a great show, bud. And I love people are back. Feels like school's back in session, so people are able to.
It feels good.
It feels good. It feels good to have more folks back in here. Tom Inman is saying Jack's Beach. Yes, you live close enough that we can get together, Tom.
Let's do it, Tom. Come on in and hang out.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff, GC. Happy to have everybody back, right? Like I feel like when people show up, there's just a better vibe. There's better questions. There's more encouragement. There's more like the roll call is a lot more fun. Yeah. We've done a couple of things lately of reducing the amount of notifications that go out ahead of the show, trying to like reduce the amount of noise. But I think we just turned it back on. I think it's proved that you like to be reminded to come to the show. So just so you know, like that has been like a signal that we've noticed. So if you see invitations coming back on, I mean, to me, it's a very, very clear signal that like it helps people showing up. So we appreciate you listening to those invitations. We appreciate you taking the time out of a middle of a workday to show up here, get educated on real estate, ask questions, answer questions, get to know people. And we just couldn't do this stuff without you, man. I'm just pumped every time we get to do this.
Me too.
That being said, next week, big show, GC. Do you know what's happening next week?
I didn't look. What's happening?
The original flow from Progressive.
Oh, that's right. I was just thinking about that. I can't wait.
Whitney Ritchie, the category queen of insurance here in Jacksonville. We know people love to hate talking about insurance here on when it comes to real estate investing. We know people have all sorts of misconceptions about real estate and insurance when it comes to investing in Florida. We are bringing on our favorite subject matter expert on insurance, Whitney Ritchie, been on the show multiple times. It's going to be a good one.
It's going to be great. This is a perfect time to talk about it. We're going to talk about how do we prepare in advance for hurricanes. All of your questions. You guys are going to have 1,000 questions about hurricanes because guess what? It's going to be hurricane season soon. Bring them all for Whitney because she's going to be here next week. And I'll bring the JWB lens as well. It's going to be a blast.
We love the new names. Anila, good to see you in here. Ihab, good to have you in here. Mohammed, like a bunch of new names are checking in. I love the old names. Bellegreen, Malmana. Why didn't you? I feel like I didn't say his name in the roll call. Bellegreen.
I think he timed it perfectly at the end. He knew he wanted to be the last one.
The Rileys, Joel, Lee, the Patron Santorios, all of you. Thank you so much for making this was a really, really fun show to have everybody back. Greg, any advice from now to of course, the first family.
The family is here.
Checking in from Alaska. God, you guys are the best. Any advice from now till then, GC?
Don't be average.
Don't be average.